A critical summit takes place in Alaska today. Fewer Americans are hitting the bottle. And human hair may hold the secret to better toothpaste. That's some of what we'll get to on the 7 from the Washington Post. I'm Hannah Jewell. It's Friday, August 15th. Let's get you caught up with today's 7 stories. Number 1. President Donald Trump has a high-stakes meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Today in Anchorage, the two presidents will speak one-on-one with only their interpreters present. That conversation will be followed by a wider meeting between their countries' delegations. The summit is designed as a step toward ending Russia's war against Ukraine. But Ukraine and Russia remain far apart on what they would accept as a peace deal. And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has not been invited to the summit. Trump gave a preview of the talks at the White House yesterday.
I think it's going to be very interesting. We're going to find out where everybody stands, and I'll know within the first 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, or 5 minutes, like we tend to find out whether or not we're going to have a good meeting or a bad meeting. And if it's a bad meeting, it'll end very quickly. And if it's a good meeting, we're going to end up getting peace in the pretty near future, okay? How about one?
Zelenskyy has ruled out surrendering land to Russia, and he has called his exclusion from today's meeting a victory for Putin. Number 2 is a Post exclusive. ICE documents revealed plans to double immigrant detention space this year. When President Trump returned to office in January, the U.S. already had the largest immigrant detention system in the world. It had capacity for about 50,000 migrants. But right away, Trump's administration set a goal of doubling it. An internal planning roadmap obtained by the Post shows for the first time exactly how immigration authorities plan to reach that goal. Under the plans, 125 facilities would be opened or expanded this year. And by January, ICE would be able to hold more than 107,000 people. ICE's breakneck expansion has been a chaotic effort that has already triggered lawsuits and accusations of cruelty. Number 3. D.C. officials issued their first major pushback against a federal takeover of the city's police. Yesterday, U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi ordered the D.C. government to recognize a new emergency police commissioner. Bondi wants to install Terry Cole, the head of the DEA. Bondi also ordered the immediate suspension of D.C. police policies which limit cooperation with federal immigration authorities. Speaking to Fox News' Sean Hannity, Bondi addressed D.C. officials who want to keep the district a sanctuary city for undocumented immigrants.
You must comply. You must give the information to our ICE, to our Homeland Security officers. If they have information of an illegal alien living in D.C., they must give us that information. And we are going to stop crime, Sean, in D.C., and we're going to clean it up in this country. And President Trump is committed to that.
But Bondi's directive drew pushback from the D.C. mayor and attorney general. They called the order unlawful and suggested they will not comply. That sets up a major power clash as the district clings to its limited autonomy. This week's federal takeover of D.C. police and the deployment of the National Guard to the city has kept our newsroom busy, and next week promises to be just as eventful. That makes this a perfect time to try our 1-week pass. 7 days of our journalism for just $7. Get your 1-week pass at washingtonpost.com/weekpass. The Department of Health and Human Services is reviving a long-defunct childhood vaccine safety panel. That's number 4. In May, a lawsuit funded by anti-vaccine activists aimed to reconvene the Task Force on Safer Childhood Vaccines, which was disbanded in 1998. HHS said yesterday that it would revive it. The resurrection of the panel appears to be the first concrete step to achieve a longtime goal of Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. That is to upend the current childhood immunization schedule, which recommends which shots children receive and when. Studies have found the schedule to be safe. Public health experts are concerned about the panel's resurrection. They worry that the task force will overemphasize very small risks and undermine trust in vaccines. Number 5. Tropical storm Erin is now predicted to become a Category 4 hurricane. Erin is on the verge of becoming the Atlantic season's first hurricane. As of early this morning, the storm had winds of 70 miles per hour. That's according to the National Hurricane Center. Category 1 hurricane wind speeds start at 74 miles per hour. The Hurricane Center also increased predictions of Erin's intensity. It could become a Category 4 storm on Sunday. The storm is expected to track north of the Caribbean islands into early next week. It will be close enough to land to cause heavy rain and localized flooding, strong winds, and dangerous sea conditions. The east coast of the U.S. could feel some effects next week. Americans are drinking less booze. That's number 6. A new Gallup poll found that 54% of American adults say they consume alcohol. That's the lowest percentage in at least 86 years. And 53% of Americans say that drinking in moderation, defined as 1 or 2 drinks a day, is bad for health. It's the first time Gallup has found a majority who feel that way. And they're not wrong to think it. Public health experts and officials have mounted a campaign in recent years on the idea that no amount of alcohol is safe. The decline follows a big spike in drinking during the worst of the coronavirus pandemic. Groups showing pronounced declines over the past 2 years include young people, women, and Republicans. And at number 7, sheep's wool and human hair could be the secret to better toothpaste. To reassure you right off the bat, this is not a gross story like yesterday's tentacled rabbits. That's because this story is not about literally putting hair and wool into your toothpaste. Rather, those are both sources for an ingredient that could revolutionize dental care. That ingredient is the fibrous protein keratin. A new study says that keratin can repair damaged tooth enamel. That's a big deal, because unlike with fingernails, skin, bones, and other bits of the body, once enamel is lost, it can't regenerate on its own. That's why dentists are always so anxious about acidic foods. The study found that keratin can stop the early stages of tooth decay, which affects about 90% of Americans aged 20 to 64. Plus, keratin is a cheap, safe, and abundant material. It still needs more research, but if you start seeing hairy toothpaste on sale in the coming years, don't get the ick. That's the show for this week. I don't want to jinx it, but I think we may have figured out the problem that was...
You're listening to Carolyn Hacks. Friend group rallies for one birthday, shrugs at another, a column written by Carolyn Hacks and read by an AI-generated voice. Dear Carolyn, I'm in college, so my friend group is not together during the summer. 2 of us are from one place, City A, and 3 are from across the country, City B. The City B friends all have birthdays during the school year. I threw each a party at my apartment, baked them their favorite type of cake, and got them a present I really thought they would enjoy. I put in a lot of thought and effort to try to make them feel special. My birthday is in the summer. so my City B friends sent me birthday wishes via text. I was calling them the other day, and they brought up their birthday ideas for our other City A friend, who also has a summer birthday. One of them even mentioned he had already sent his present. I know not everyone prioritizes birthdays the way I do, but I'm struggling to not take this personally. Any advice? Summer birthday. Summer birthday. Not taking things personally may be the most useful advice there is for moving forward, especially since we tend to think more things are about us than really are. The case for taking this personally is a decent one, though. I'm sorry. I've been there, same neighborhood, and it hurts. But the cosmos, your friendships, and your self-regard don't have to end with this one slap to the face. You can absorb it and still move forward with your optimism and self-love intact. And your place in the friend group if you want. It just takes willingness to accept this as data instead of only rejection. Then consider what it's telling you. For example, in any group, some members are always closer to the center than others. Envision heads bobbing in agreement with the obvious. Okay. Now, what does that mean about others automatically? Outer rings? Ergo, every group ever has delivered this ouch epiphany to someone. Oh, it's me. I'm outer ring. Placement is not worth, it's just member dynamics. It may shift over time. In a different group, you might slot in somewhere else. Another example, your way of conducting friendship, the birthday attention baths say, are lovely and well meant, but some people adore attention and others don't. So friends may love you but not get you. Or they give back to you generously. In their ways, which you value less than birthdays. Now we both could also be overreacting to an experiment with a meaningless sample size. Maybe the only difference between your friend's birthday gift and your birthday text was a random impulse purchase. Super common. But it's still not a bad idea to make peace with hard data, for a few reasons. First, when you're deciding who will be central to your life, it's important to choose people who won't hurt you intentionally. But you will get hurt occasionally nonetheless. It's part of caring. You can't turn off your hurt feelings, and I don't suggest you try. But inviting them into your range of unavoidable experience tends to keep them a manageable size. Second, it's how you become a better person and friend. Not taking things personally moves you forward, yes, but if you want to grow, then have the guts to hear your feedback. It won't all be valid. Every opinion is just one person's view, even mom's. But you have to hear it to sort it. Finally, eventually, it gives you the power to act versus react. So your emotions don't pick your response, you do. Do you want more info? Time to think? Some elaborately plotted revenge? Joke. Do not do this. With this group, I suggest come fall. Pay more attention, but maybe lavish a little less. Diversify socially and hold off on drawing conclusions.
You're listening to Bondi seeks to rescind D.C. police immigration policies as enforcement ramps up. A news story written by Jenny Gathright, Olivia George, Teo Armis, and Michael Laris, and read by an AI-generated voice. The Trump administration signaled Thursday that it would use its takeover of D.C. police to ramp up federal efforts to crack down on immigration. It was a day of wild policy swings and urgent responses as district officials tried, and failed, to dissuade federal officials from taking a harder line in the city. In the morning, the D.C. police chief rolled out a policy allowing officers to assist in federal immigration enforcement in limited circumstances, garnering praise from President Donald Trump and a Republican senator, and swift condemnation from residents and immigrant advocates who saw it as a betrayal of city values. But by shortly after 9 p.m. Thursday, Attorney General Pam Bondi said she was rescinding the order from D.C. Police Chief Pamela A. Smith, taking the position that it hadn't gone far enough. A Bondi spokesman, Chad Gilmartin, wrote in a thread on social media that the Attorney General had ordered an end to dangerous sanctuary policies in Washington, D.C., and concluded, "Make D.C. safe again." The district's top legal official rejected Bondi's order, calling it unlawful. The policy whiplash arrived on a day when White House officials said that more than 24 immigrants had been arrested the night before, as the Trump administration deploys federal law enforcement throughout D.C. With Trump focused on crime in the nation's capital, officials in the D.C. government had hoped to try to outlast the White House's interest in the city and position Mayor Muriel E. Bowser, Democrat, as central to Trump's wins, according to two people familiar with internal deliberations, who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss sensitive conversations. That approach involved agreeing to cooperate with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Smith's order Thursday said D.C. police officers could assist federal immigration enforcement efforts by sharing information about people not in custody, such as those encountered at traffic stops. It also said officers could assist by transporting Federal Immigration Agency employees and their detained suspects. Under the President's executive order, Metropolitan Police Department services have been requested to assist ICE with transportation of detainees and traffic stops, a department spokesperson said in a statement, which characterized Smith's order as a clarification rather than a policy change. While Smith was allowing police to provide some assistance on immigration enforcement, she also reiterated existing policies limiting officers' cooperation. Nonetheless, Smith's move stirred outrage and fear, and pleased President Donald Trump. That's a great step if they are doing that, Trump said Thursday afternoon when a reporter asked him about the order. He did not directly respond about whether his administration had pressured Smith on the matter. D.C. Councilmember Janice Lewis George, D. Ward 4, said that reporting our undocumented D.C. residents to ICE is a pretty goddamn big line that the city should not cross. That's a huge betrayal of our values as D.C. residents, she said. The D.C. Police Union said in a statement that it stands with President Trump's recognition of the crime crisis and Mayor Bowser's efforts to align the police department with federal priorities. By Thursday night, Smith's order was thrown out, and Bondi had ordered Bowser and the police department to submit to a new governing structure with a Trump appointee, Terry Cole, as Emergency Police Commissioner. Bondi's order said the city's police leadership must receive approval from Commissioner Cole before issuing any further directives to the department. Bowser pushed back on social media late Thursday. She said she is legally bound to provide the services of the Metropolitan Police Department for federal purposes at the request of the president, but that there is no statute that conveys the district's personnel authority to a federal official. Concerning immigration policy, Bondi's problem with Smith's order was that it had, according to Gil Martin, also limited immigration status inquiries and prevented arrests solely for federal immigration warrants. Bondi also rescinded police general orders from 2023 and 2024 covering those policies that Smith had highlighted as still being in effect. D.C. Attorney General Brian Schwalb advised Bowser late Thursday, "It is my opinion that the Bondi order is unlawful and that you are not legally obligated to follow it." Late last week, Trump ordered a surge of federal law enforcement activity to combat what he diagnosed as a crime emergency in the district. He escalated the push Monday, announcing he would deploy National Guard troops to D.C. streets and place the district's police department under federal control. The federal personnel have been working alongside D.C. police in a relationship that Smith had framed as collaborative. It is unclear how many of the immigration arrests conducted in the district this week, if any, were made with direct involvement from D.C. police. The arrests nonetheless sent an additional chill through migrant communities in and around the district. Many already wary from the heightened federal presence and videos of local detainments reverberating through group chats and social media. On Tuesday, for example, ICE agents took into custody a man doing construction outside a home in the Mount Pleasant neighborhood of Northwest Washington. The agency posted a video online of agents pulling him out from a porch area, fresh lumber propped against the home. Accompanying the footage, ICE wrote, "Illegal aliens may be crawling out of the woodwork in D.C., but our officers will not stop until our nation's capital is safe and prosperous once again." ICE officers also detained multiple people outside a Home Depot in Northeast Washington on Tuesday morning, according to footage circulating online. In one video, an apparently handcuffed man cried for his children as officers pulled him off the pavement in the parking lot. On Wednesday, NBC4 reported that a person stopped by D.C. police for a traffic violation was taken into ICE custody. D.C. police did not respond to questions about the incident. While Trump has framed his law enforcement surge as focused on reducing violent crime, it has also increasingly focused on vulnerable groups of people whom he has constantly targeted with rhetoric and policy, people experiencing homelessness and undocumented immigrants. Sofia Ramirez, an 18-year-old in Northwest Washington whose father, an undocumented immigrant from Guatemala, was picked up after a traffic stop Monday and taken to a Virginia detention center, said she could not understand how such an effort was making her neighborhood any safer. "All it means is that we're now struggling to pay rent and trying to get my dad out of there," she said. Ramirez's father, Ludwin Oliverio Ramirez de Leon, 42, was arrested while driving along Georgia Avenue to his job as a mechanic, she said. It was unclear if that arrest was part of a targeted deportation, but Ramirez said he had no criminal record and that her older sister, a U.S. citizen, had joined the military to secure parole for her father. On Wednesday night, 29 immigration-related arrests were made as part of the federal operation in D.C., the White House said Thursday morning. They were among 45 total arrests that night, for reasons including allegedly carrying a concealed weapon and distributing a controlled substance. 3 illegal firearms were seized, according to the White House. These results are happening night after night because of the efforts of this federal task force that are working alongside the D.C. police, who agree with this effort. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said on Fox News on Thursday morning. At a Wednesday night checkpoint on 14th Street NW, a well-populated corridor in the city, a mix of local and federal law enforcement, including ICE officers, pulled drivers over for seatbelt violations and broken taillights. At least 2 people were detained as protesters gathered around. ICE had broad leeway to conduct operations in the district before Trump's current push, and has been making arrests this year at more than twice the pace that it did last year. However, Wednesday's 29 immigration arrests make for an unusually large one-day total. ICE arrested 28 people in D.C. in nearly all of July, down from 55 in June and 72 in May, according to a post-analysis of data from the Deportation Data Project. There have only been 4 days in the past 2 years, all in 2025, when ICE has made more than 10 arrests in the district. D.C., a deep blue city run by Democratic leaders who have repeatedly expressed their desire to be welcoming to immigrants, has historically steered its police department away from cooperating with federal immigration enforcement agencies in an effort to make sure crime victims feel comfortable going to the police regardless of their immigration status. District law still prohibits local law enforcement from providing information about people in D.C. custody to federal immigration enforcement. Under that law, people cannot be held at the D.C. jail past their release date at federal immigration enforcement officers' request. Before Bondi's moves Thursday night, immigrant advocates blasted Smith's order and worried about its ramifications. CASA, an immigrant rights group, blasted out messages on social media Thursday, calling on its members to think twice before calling D.C. police to report crimes and warning those members, most of whom live in the Maryland or Virginia suburbs, to avoid coming to the district unless absolutely necessary. The very D.C. police officer that comes to the door may also turn you over to ICE, regardless of your immigration status, said CASA spokeswoman Josie Flor Sapunar. It's a tragedy that crimes will go unreported, but people will be understandably wary to call for help considering the consequences. Genevieve Augustin, director of legal services at the D.C. area immigration advocacy group Kerrison, said she recognized the D.C. government is in a tough position, but worried about the police chief's order's long-term consequences for public safety. This action impacts the trust that the community will have with the police, she said. With less trust, you have less cooperation, and with less cooperation, communities are less safe. Senator Mike Lee, Republican Utah, a frequent critic of D.C. policies and self-government, had applauded the police chief's order as excellent news. Lee has proposed repealing the Home Rule Act, the decades-old law that gave D.C. residents the power to elect a council and a mayor. Despite a law that limits law enforcement cooperation with ICE, D.C. was limited in its ability to prevent immigration enforcement. While D.C. police historically have not aided with immigration enforcement, the city has found itself powerless to shield many undocumented immigrants who get arrested, even those accused of minor crimes, from possible deportation, a dynamic that has previously sparked frustration among city leaders and anger among activists. Unlike in other cities, D.C.'s judicial system is run not only by local agencies, but also through federal partners. Prosecutors and workers who conduct pre- and post-trial supervision of arrestees are federal employees. So are U.S. Marshals, who provide security and transport inmates. There is no one universal definition of a sanctuary city, but D.C. was included on a list of sanctuary jurisdictions designated by the Department of Justice, which said it delivered demand letters to those jurisdictions on Thursday, threatening legal action. Bondi wrote in a post on X, "Any sanctuary jurisdiction that continues to put illegal aliens ahead of American citizens can either come to the table or see us in court." Emily Davies, Jasmine Golden, Megan Hoyer, Emmanuel Martinez, Dana Monroe, and Brittany Shamus contributed to this report.